kind of transition, I think, to one of the Patriots' opponents over this season, and actually the team that they beat just this past Sunday in the New York Jets. The New York Jets, I talked about them a little earlier. They've had a really, really good year. I thought that they were going to win 6 or 7 games total. They have already won 6 games, and they are 10 weeks in, or 11 weeks in, whatever it has been at this point. But still, either way, they have overperformed my expectations. Their defense has performed very, very well. I did not think their defense would be as good as they are, but you've got a guy who almost certainly is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year in Sauce Gardner that you drafted very, very high up, and he already looks like one of the best DBs in football, which is just scary to think about. You may have another Darrelle Revis on your hands if you are the New York Jets. And again, it's not just Sauce Gardner, but their whole defense has played very well. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. They're able to actually keep guys in front of them in the secondary right now, even with the departure of Marcus May. So it's been really, really interesting to watch the Jets really perform well, quite frankly, in spite of their quarterback and their quarterback situation, which obviously was Joe Flacco for the first few weeks of the season, and then Zach Wilson ended up coming back to kind of take over the rest of this season so far, and that is where I am going to talk about what has been going on with the Jets over the last 24, 48, 72 hours-ish ever since their game against the Patriots. So for those of you who have not kind of been following along and kind of understanding what's been going on in Jets world, Zach Wilson really messed up pretty bad. Now, before I get into that, let's talk about the Jets' performance this past weekend against the Patriots. Now, obviously, I myself am a Patriots fan, so it was nice to see the Jets stink so badly on offense. But quite frankly, their defense played fantastic. They really did. They really played bend, don't break. Mac Jones only had 4 incompletions the whole game, which, I mean, obviously they didn't score any touchdowns on offense, so it wasn't, fantastic by any stretch, but he took care of the ball. He made the right reads the vast majority of the time. And you know what? The Patriots still almost had 100 rushing yards on the game, which, again, is not very good. But, it's not like they were completely stymied on the ground either. But the Jets were able to really hold them. And, they only allowed 1 field goal, and I think Nick Folk may have missed a field goal as well. But that's it. That's all the Patriots amounted on offense. And then obviously you had the walk-off punt return touchdown. That doesn't have anything to do with the offense. But it was an interesting game to see the Jets' defense perform so well. And again, against the pretty anemic Patriots offense at this point that hasn't really been able to do much against anybody, quite frankly. But that begs the question, what in the world happened to the Jets offense? Now, look, we've seen shutouts, right? We've seen teams only score 3 points or only score 6 points or only score 7 points. We've seen that all the time in the NFL. And so, what's so special about this time? Like, why am I talking about it other than the Jets losing and the Patriots winning? There is something very special about this pummeling on that the Patriots gave the Jets on offense, or the Patriots defense gave the Jets offense. Let me clarify that real quick, because obviously the Patriots offense didn't do much either. The score will say that the game was very close, and it was in a lot of ways, but when you kind of dive deeper into the statistics here, Zach Wilson, for an entire football game in 2022, almost 2023 at this point, we're only about 5-ish weeks away from it being 2023, 5 or 6 weeks. So, we're in a different state of football at this point than we were back in the 1970s and 80s when, quite frankly, even then a stat line like this would be embarrassing. Zach Wilson went 9 for 22 for 77 yards passing. I mean, that's just horrible. I mean, there's no other way to describe it to you guys. I tend to kind of use these adjectives in, kind of in succession, talk about it a lot. But it was horrible. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, just look up the stats. His total QBR was somewhere around 26, which I would not be shocked if that's the worst number we've seen, not just this season, but in the last 5 or 6 years from a quarterback that played the whole game and, just and didn't throw any interceptions. That's another thing. He didn't turn the ball over, which is just incredible to think about, that neither quarterback turned the ball over. This was just a complete lack of any kind of competency on offense whatsoever. It's one thing to have a horrible QBR, a horrible day on offense because you're throwing it to the other team all day, or your running back fumbles 4 times like we saw the Rams do last year in the NFC Championship game, or in the NFC Divisional game, against the Buccaneers. But it's a whole nother thing to just literally not be able to move the ball or find open receivers, or you're missing every throw, and yet you still don't throw any interceptions or turn the ball over. Like, that's what's sad. To me, anyway. Well, there's a lot more that's sad other than that, obviously. But, just kind of diving deeper into the stats again. 9 for 22 for 77 yards. That's bad. In the second half of the game against the Patriots, the Jets offense managed 23 rushing yards, which, again, that's really bad. But even worse, they managed a total of negative 21 passing yards in the second half. Yes, you heard me. Negative 21 passing yards. That means that for an entire half, 30 game minutes of football, where Zach Wilson was never taken out of the game, he took every snap in that game for the Jets. Their total net yards for an entire half of football was 2. 23 positive rushing yards minus 21 passing yards. You put those together, that means they had a total net gain of 2 yards for 30 minutes of football. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't fumble the ball. They didn't throw any interceptions. It was just horrible. They took sacks. They ran the ball a few times with some marginal success. At least they had positive gains on the ground, obviously. When Zach Wilson actually ran the football, he had a couple of gains, 8 yards, 10 yards, 12 yards, whatever it was, right? But when he threw the ball, quite frankly, he might as well have just thrown the ball into the stands, because he actually would have had more passing yards on the game if he had done that. If he had just ran out of the pocket and thrown the ball in the stands every single play. Now, when that happens as a quarterback, when that happens as an offense, that's obviously not just on one guy, right? That's on your receivers for not getting open. That's on your offensive line for not being able to block, whether in the run or protecting your quarterback. But a lot of it is on your quarterback to make the right reads, make the throws. I didn't see the entirety of the game, but my guess is the Patriots weren't super glued to the Jets receivers every second of every play. That's almost impossible to happen. That's almost impossible to do. So my guess is Zach Wilson probably missed some open receivers and he threw to the wrong guy. And he probably also had some just horrible throws where he threw it over guys, bouncing throws. I certainly saw some of those, but, for just kind of reference, it's not like he was just, it's not like wide receivers are dropping balls all the live long day, and it's not like the Patriots were super glued to him all day. They were for a lot of it, but certainly not for all of it. So, again, when you have a game like that as an offense, it's accountability is really important. The Jets defense played absolutely out of their minds. They played so well. And we saw, or at least I saw, Garrett Wilson, the rookie wide receiver taken very, very high out of Ohio State this year in the draft for the Jets, talk about it after the game. And he did not mince words. He said a lot of curse words that I will not obviously say here, but he just said it's absolute crap. It's absolutely horrible. There's no excuse for it. Things need to change and need to get better. The coaches need to be better. The players need to be better. I need to be better. The quarterback needs to be better. We all need to be better. He called out everybody. Now, granted, you can kind of say, oh, well, he's a rookie. You should shut his mouth. But, hey, you know what's even sadder? Nobody taking accountability for that. And I'm not saying that nobody other than Garrett Wilson would have taken accountability for that, because obviously a lot of guys have, the coaches have. But you know who did not take any accountability for that, and that's what I want to kind of get into today, is Zach Wilson, the quarterback. I mean, you know, he's 22 years old out of BYU, and point blank, just did not take any responsibility. He kind of did something similar to what Garrett Wilson did. He talked about the wide receivers and how they needed to, be better, and the coaches needed to be better, offensive line needed to be better. Never once mentioned himself. Never said that he needed to be better. And then a reporter asked this 22-year-old kid about the easiest question that you could possibly have. Hey, do you feel like you let your defense down today? Well, your defense, held the Patriots to 3 points, no offensive touchdowns, less than 400 yards on the game, probably honestly less than 300 yards on the game if I had to look at the stats again. Again, 3 points, your special teams gave up a touchdown late, but that's not on the defense. And you had no support, no rest, just 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out after 3 and out. And, it just a complete anemic offense for the Jets. That's what the Jets defense had. And one of the things about football that people don't really talk about a lot is the fatigue factor on defense is real. If your offense isn't working, if they're not able to milk the clock, if they're not able to string a couple of first downs together every once in a while, they're basically running to the sideline. They get 3 or 4 or 5 minutes in real time. They get a commercial break and then a couple of plays, and then they're back on the field and they're running, trying to keep up with these wide receivers. Now, again, the Patriots receiver room is not the best in the world, but they're still pro athletes. These guys are still, at the top of their game. So, trying to keep up with them and trying to lock them down every play, especially when the pressure is on, when you have to lock them down because your offense is performing so poorly, it's not easy. It is exhausting, and I cannot imagine. I wouldn't last 2 seconds out there. But, it's the easiest question in the world, what that reporter asked Zach Wilson. Do you feel like you let your defense down today? When you did not do anything on offense, 2 total yards in the second half. Somehow you got that even though you didn't turn the ball over. I still don't know how that's possible. You only scored 3 points. You didn't run the ball. You were missing throws. Did you let your defense down? Easiest question in the world. The answer is yes, I did let my team down. I let my defense down. I let my receivers down. I'm the quarterback. I'm the leader of the offense. I'm the leader of this team. I need to be better. Easy. Easiest question in the world. What was his response? No. Actually, technically, it was no, and then he walked off the podium. Wow. I mean, you talk about stupid, right? I mean, you talk about not taking accountability, and you talk about immaturity. I mean, that it's all over that answer right there. I mean, listen, here's a saying that I learned back in high school that I still carry with me to this day. That this is how I honestly operate when it comes to business, when it comes to my podcast, when it comes to just dealing with friends, family, just other people in general. If you are the leader of something, if you are the person that's in charge, or when you are, one of the better quality people at what you're doing, again, whether that's your job, whether that's at your home, whether that's with your spouse, whether that's with your kids, whether that's with whoever, if you are the leader, when it's going good, it's on your team, and when it's going bad, it's on you. Because as the leader, you need to keep that accountability for all of your teammates, and you need to keep that kind of positive attitude, and you need to take responsibility. Now, listen, am I saying that game was entirely Zach Wilson's fault? No. But a lot of it was his fault. A lot of it is the fact that in, the handful of games that he has played against the New England Patriots, he has absolutely stunk up the joint. And quite frankly, it's infuriating to look at a quarterback that not just this game, but several times this season has thrown for less than 150 yards, that has thrown more interceptions than touchdowns, and you were the number 2 pick in the draft. This is not just some random guy. This is a guy that was drafted before Justin Fields, before Mac Jones, before Trey Lance. The only guy that was drafted before him was what everyone agreed to be the best quarterback prospect we'd seen since Andrew Luck coming out of the draft in Trevor Lawrence, and possibly one of the best prospects ever to come out of the draft. I heard people saying that he was the best quarterback to come out of the draft right there and right then and there, most pro-ready quarterback since Michael Vick in 2001. Now, I don't agree with that. Obviously, I think Andrew Luck was very, very special, but I've heard people say that, and that's just insane to think that the only guy drafted before this kid that made these statements was that incredible prospect. It was that incredible prospect, and instead of the Jets getting that incredible prospect, they took Zach Wilson out of BYU, number 2 overall. This is their guy. Sam Darnold didn't work out. Mark Sanchez didn't work out. Any of these other quarterbacks that the Jets have had over the last 15, 20 years, quite frankly, ever since Joe Namath, have just not worked. Sanchez had marginal success. People forget. They went to back-to-back AFC championship games, his rookie year and his second year. It's not like Mark Sanchez didn't have success at some point in his career. Now, obviously, it fell off a cliff from there, but for the point being, he still had success. Brett Favre was in that locker room at one point. Brett Favre is one of the most successful quarterbacks of all time. So, the Jets' locker room has just not had a ton. They have had a little bit, but they haven't had a ton of success from these quarterbacks. Sam Darnold is lost somewhere in Carolina, although I think he's supposed to start this weekend. But he's lost out there. He's somehow third on a quarterback chart, despite, being picked third overall in the draft a few years ago. It's sad to see. And for Zach Wilson, you were tagged to be the man. I mean, when you're taken second overall at quarterback, you are not expected to stink. You might have a bit of a tough first year. You'll make some rookie mistakes, but by your second and by your third year, you're supposed to start taking leaps. I mean, we saw it with guys like Deshaun Watson. We've seen Trevor Lawrence take a big step forward this year. I can think of a million guys in the past that have taken, steps forward in their second year, but Zach Wilson's honestly gone backwards. And when you have a guy like that that's 22 years old, when you have a guy that has not taken any accountability for what has happened to his team this year, it's infuriating. I mean, even as a Patriots fan, it's so upsetting to see a guy take such little responsibility for his team's failure. And it's not like, it's not like he's on a team that's 2-10 right now, or 2-8. He's not. He's on a team that's in the hunt for the playoffs. If the Jets had beaten the Patriots this week, they would have been in first place in their division because they'd beaten the Bills, they'd beaten the Dolphins, they would have had the tiebreaker. But instead, they're in last place. See, that's all it takes in this AFC East division. That's all it takes right now. You lose one winnable game, you might be in last place in your division, despite the fact that you maybe have won 10 games. There is honestly still a mathematical possibility that all 4 teams in the AFC East are going to make the playoffs with the new playoff format. Now, I really hope that doesn't happen because that would just be a free-for-all. And quite frankly, other than the Bills, I wouldn't be shocked if if Miami, New England, and the Jets, unless, of course, they all played each other, if they were just all eliminated in the first round of the playoffs. Because quite frankly, when you got teams at the top that are as successful as they are, like the Ravens and like the Bills and like the Chiefs, you're not going to stand much of a chance. So for me, the most infuriating thing about Zach Wilson's comments of saying, no, he doesn't feel like he let the defense down, is even if you don't feel like you did, even if your teammates know you didn't let them down, you're still supposed to say it, man. I cannot tell you the amount of times that Tom Brady for the Patriots was just so absurdly ridiculed, criticized, thrown under the bus when he's the GOAT. Like, people saying, oh, it's all Tom Brady's fault that the Patriots lost last week. I heard people say it was all Tom Brady's fault that the Patriots lost to the Eagles in the Super Bowl a few years ago when Tom Brady threw for 500 freaking yards. Like, What do you want the man to do? Throw for 900 yards and 28 touchdowns? Come on. But that's a man that still says, I could have done better. I could have made this throw. This guy was open. I missed him. In that case, I dropped that football that they ran a trick play and Tom Brady dropped the football. Tom Brady would still take accountability. He still would take the blame for a lot and try and, get that spotlight, that bad spotlight off of his teammates, because that's what a leader does. When things are going good, it's all about I can't do it without my guys. Garrett got open a million times today. This guy made Denzel Mims made a fantastic catch in the end zone, or whatever it is. It's all about your team. My offensive line blocked for me all day. I didn't get touched all afternoon. It's all because of them. Whatever, I don't care. It's all about the team when things are going good, and when things are bad, you know what? I didn't play well enough today. I missed a couple of open throws. We didn't convert on third down enough, that we should. I missed some opportunities. I've got to be better, and I'm going to prepare next week for freaking Pittsburgh or whoever the heck you're playing next week, and we're gonna bounce back from this. I can assure you. That's what you want to hear from your leader, even if you're sitting there going, dude, that you threw for 450 yards and the defense stunk, right? Yeah, but you're still supposed to take accountability as a leader. That's what you do. Heck, I've heard coaches take responsibility for their teams being awful. The guys that don't even go out there and play that are taking responsibility for the teams being awful. And that's what leaders do. Zach Wilson, clearly not a leader. And that all brings us to kind of the formality of this all, which is today, Robert Saleh announced Zach Wilson is actually going to be benched this week. He's not going to start in their next game. And again, I can't remember who they're playing right now, or next week, excuse me. But, yeah, that's what he deserves. I mean, I'm sorry. I hate to be that blunt, but it's what he deserves. Kid's 22. Now, am I saying that Zach Wilson's a complete bust and he's never going to turn out to be anything? No. He's got a lot of talent. I've seen, plays that, he looks like the number 2 overall pick sometimes. I've seen him throw for 400 yards in a game. I mean, he's got talent. Trust me, he's a good player. But he's very inconsistent, he's very immature, and he clearly doesn't know what it takes to be a leader yet. That doesn't mean he can't develop into one. That doesn't mean that he won't eventually turn into one. But right now, I really hope that this is just a big wake-up call for Zach Wilson, and that we're going to see top-notch Zach Wilson from now on. I hope he takes this, he learns from it, and, he might be benched for the rest of the year. Depending on how Mike White plays, I've seen Mike White go off once, but still, it's possible. So, you never know. And so I really hope that he learns from it. I hope that he kind of figures this out. And I really hope that at a certain point, he will be able to take this, become the leader that the Jets need him to be. Because, even though they're in the rival division of the Patriots, I just love watching good football. And you never want young stud guys with a lot of talent to just flame out, because then everybody loses out on wonderful football and possible incredible memories. So, shout out to Zach Wilson, and I hope that he learns from it. But right now, he needs to sit his butt on the pine for a little bit and kind of think about what he's done. He looks like a teenager. Let's treat him like one. Go to your room and think about what you've done. Hey guys, me again. Thank you so much for watching one of my clips from the Lopes Goes Last podcast. These clips are so much fun to do. I absolutely love making them, and I absolutely love doing them. And this podcast is my baby, so I really want this thing to grow, and I really want it to succeed. So if you did like what you see, please subscribe. Also hit that bell notification so you never miss any one of my episodes or one of my clips like this one. And please do also like and share these videos with your friends and your family so that we can make this thing grow as fast as possible. And I wanted to thank you again so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a great rest of your day.